Good morning, everyone, and Happy New Year. Welcome to our weekly discussion series that's hosted by the Chaldean Cultural Center in collaboration with U of M Detroit Center, Unique Voices in Films, and CMN TV. I'm your host, Wiam Nemu, and today I have two very special guests, Warren and Dr. Amal David. Welcome. I've known them for over a decade, and they've been working tirelessly for decades on issues dealing with Arab America. And Warren David is the president of Arab America, a national media organization founded with the purpose of promoting an accurate image of the Arab American community and identity through several digital media platforms. He is a co-founder of the Arab American Foundation, a nonprofit which promotes the Arab heritage and empowers Arab Americans in the US. He is the former national president of the American Arab Anti-Discrimination Committee in Washington, DC, and was executive producer of the nationally acclaimed public television series, Arab American Stories. A third-generation Arab American of Syrian and Lebanese heritage, he has invested his time and personal resources to document and tell the stories of the Arab American experience. Dr. Amal David, she is a co-founder and board member of the Arab America Foundation, where she currently leads a grassroots network of Arab heritage teams across the country. She is also director of operations and outreach at Arab America. A Palestinian born in Nazareth, she earned her PhD in communication with an emphasis in multicultural education. She has over 35 years of experience in bilingual education as an administrator in Detroit Public Schools and as an adjunct professor teaching at college levels. Additionally, she was a producer and a host of several radio programs in Detroit. In Washington, DC, she created and developed the largest grassroots Arab American women's initiatives in the US. Her participation as a community leader and advocate portrays a positive image of Arab American women. So just to share with everyone, the Arab American Foundation held an Empowerment National Summit from November 12th to 14th last year, so just a few months ago. And I participated in this event, which was held in Dearborn. And I have to say that really it was beyond people's expectations. It was inspiring, empowering, and fun. That is important too. So it was very obvious from that event, and aside from everything else, of course, that you have accomplished, but it was like a celebration of all these years put together. So it really, shows that your experience and that you put your heart and soul into it, and it showed. So now we're going to go to your Arab American story. Now, if you can share, each of you, what is it? Where were you born? What did you? When did you come to the United States? And what was your immigration experience like?
You want to start with me? Or?
Well, I am a new immigrant, although I have been decades in the United States, but I was, as you said, I was born and raised in Nazareth. It's located in the Galilee, the upper part of Palestine. And since being very little, I had a tremendous eagerness for education. I felt that this is very, very important, more important than anything else. It's very important to me that I get the college education, and it wasn't easy for an Arab woman to travel by herself to the United States. It took me 2 years to beg my parents to come and study in America because opportunities for women were not provided in the area where I was born and raised. So I had to seek study abroad, and although family members broke away from my family because this is unheard of that a woman at 17, 18 years old travels by herself. So I did the travel. It was very difficult. In new culture, in new language, because back home where I was born and raised, we had, of course, I studied Arabic, but I had also to study Hebrew, and I grew up around in non-schools. I learned French and Italian, but English wasn't the primary language, so I really struggled with my language. But I managed to, I worked very, very hard. Making an A was very important. And I remember my parents used to take my report card and go to the neighbors, to family members and say, look, our daughter is doing well. She's making A's. So that was very important to me. And that encouraged the siblings coming to the United States and going for education. And also even other families got their children, especially women, to travel abroad and to get education. And that was the biggest achievement of my life, is proving that a woman can leave her hometown with no language, with no culture of the host country, and the new food and new friends, but I made it. And thanks for giving us this opportunity to tell the story. Warren has a different story.
Yeah, I have a different story. You know, Warren David, a lot of people don't really even think when they hear the name Warren David, they say, are you an Arab, or where are you from? And yeah, I'm like actually, I usually say third generation, but I'm actually a fourth generation, because I have a great grandfather that immigrated here. But my grandparents immigrated at the turn of the last century, and came with the early wave of immigrants who came during the Ottoman Empire. From Bilad al-Sham, as they call it, from the greater Syria. And so my background is Syrian. And then I have part Lebanese, because as Syria evolved into Lebanon. So my family is both. And they immigrated about 120 years ago. And they went to Ellis Island, and then they ended up in the state of Rhode Island. You know, Rhode Island's that little state, 40 by 50 miles. But there are quite a few early Syrian and Lebanese immigrants that went into not just Rhode Island, but through the East Coast, especially throughout New England. And, you know, I always had this ethos of sorts for my heritage and my culture. I was always interested in music. You know, I remember my parents, when I was a little boy, they got me we called it a dirbeki, or a table, or, you know, a drum. And it came all the way from Lebanon. And that was like a big deal for me, you know, that I had a drum. I mean, back then, you know, we didn't have, it wasn't as accessible, you know, to get a drum. And so that got me a little bit close to the music. And, you know, we used to go to different cultural events as I was growing up. And then I ended up going to school in Ohio, and studied communications. And one evening I went to an Arab party. I went to Ohio University. And we went to Ohio State, which was like an hour away, and and I was, of course, having this ethos for my culture. I had Arab friends at the university. We went to Ohio State, and lo and behold, I saw this beautiful Arab woman at a
who else would be that beautiful?
And the rest is history, you know, like, but in my generation of all, I have like over 30 first cousins. One time an anthropologist from the University of Michigan was doing an interview with me, and he was saying, you know, how many of your cousins married an Arab? You know, so I started thinking, I said, I think I'm the only one, you know, and like the only one in my generation that married an Arab. So, but it was the best thing that I ever did, because it even brought me closer to my culture. And it really, I had this ethos as it was, I had this longing for my heritage, but, you know, marrying a first generation Arab helped me to even articulate and connect even more.
Yeah, I was not aware of this background difference that you guys have. And I guess because you balance it out so well. So I wasn't sure, you know, I didn't know that your ancestry goes that far back and that you've been here for this long. So he's really like very Americanized. So he helped Americanize you, and you helped bring him back to his heritage. And then there's like this nice harmony. That's probably part of, I think, the success. And understanding the Arab American community is really a combination of both. Having, you know, is this part of the reason why you initiated Arab America? When did you, by the way, start this initiation?
Actually, we started it, actually it'll be 15 years in May that it started in 2007. The Arab America website was Arab Detroit. It started as Arab Detroit. And it was just something, at that time, it was just a website to basically to inform Arab Americans about events and to bring them together. Because as you know, Detroit is a microcosm of so many different Arab ethnicities. You know, we're an ethnically, politically, religiously, a very diverse identity, community. And the goal of Arab Detroit at that time was to bring that community together. And how we did it is that we had events, like we'd show the Ramallah community was doing an event here, and the Chaldean community was doing an event here, and the mosque was doing an event in Dearborn, and the Yemeni community, and so forth. And in a way, what we did is we brought our community together because they started to understand each other a little bit more by seeing the events that each other were doing, because and starting to attend them and so forth. And then it evolved from Arab Detroit to Arab America. We said, gee, this works so well in Detroit. Why don't we make this Arab America? And we did. And it just kind of grew from there. And the reason, there were two reasons. One was, as I said originally, was to unite our community. But secondly, we wanted to provide a narrative that you don't get in the mainstream media, because as you know, there's such a distorted and denigrating image when you talk about anything Arab or Middle Eastern or out there, whatever. I mean, all the identities, all of us have issues, whether it's because of the foreign policy of this country, you know, and that reflects us in some way, or whether it's the media, like films, television, and so forth, or it could even be political rhetoric, as of recent, that we get affected. And so we felt that we wanted to tell our story. We wanted to provide more of an accurate image through Arab America.
And this effort is not a money-driven a project. It's really out of love. We wanted to leave a legacy, and we wanted to impact the community. And I personally, I am very emotional, and many times I cried when I heard how we have been perceived. And I said, no, that's not us. We are good people. And the times of war back home, and I said, we have to do something that would bring all Arab Americans together. The religion will not bring us all together. The mother country, the diversity in our nationality will not bring us together. Our political views will not bring us together. We have to focus on one thing that brings us together, and that is our heritage. We enjoy the same food, almost the same. We have the music, and we have also the language. And there are many similarities among us that we have to celebrate and unite over such a strength. And so far, I think we will talk more later about other issues as we travel this journey. Go ahead.
Because I'm curious, so this is a wonderful path that you took, and it became very successful, but obviously at that time you were just trying to simply help bring people together from similar backgrounds and heritage. What would you say was the biggest challenges initially, and how did you overcome these challenges, and how have they changed over the years?
You know, I'm going to talk about the challenges of Arab America, or Arab Detroit, Arab America. The biggest challenge was humanizing Arabs or Arab Americans, or humanizing them in some, because we were doing, you know, everything was based on culture, identity, history. You know, the content that we started to publish was really very, you know, saying beautiful things about Arabs. And because we were saying nice things about Arab Americans, and it could be, and then we'd write about all the different identities, you know, whether it be, you know, it could be Iraqi, Chaldean, it could be Yemeni, it could be Lebanese, you know, Palestinian, and so forth. There were challenges. There were, you know, some people couldn't really, and I'm talking about the mainstream, like, what are you saying? Like, why are you saying, you know, good things? These are people that are savages, they're terrorists, they're, you know, when they watch the images on TV and so forth, you know, they, you know, they see us as savages and people that are unruly and so forth, and not having a culture or not having a civilization. And yet, you know, we come from the greatest civilization and the most incredible culture. And yet we wanted to bring that out. So there were challenges there. You know, there were people that were critical in some ways. We used to get a lot of hate mail, I can tell you, in the beginning, and sometimes even to this day, depending on what happens. You know, if there's something that happens overseas, we have gotten some interesting letters or emails.
Some people also didn't believe us, or didn't believe that we are really on a mission, and they said, oh, it's going to fade away like many other organizations. It's not going to last. And we had to build the trust, and they have seen a year after year after year. We haven't missed one e-news every week on Wednesday
since 2007.
So
like
not
maybe
one Wednesday.
I think it must be like 600 e-newses, or we've never missed one. So
and so we kept going on, and we built the trust, but that wasn't easy. Also, you asked about challenges. One challenge, we wanted just to pay expenses. There is expense to publicize the e-news, to gather information, technology, all that. And the challenge is the same as every organization. It's funding, money, because it didn't generate money. We doing it without compensation, it helped a lot. And the little money that we received in donations or in advertising, it went for paying expenses. But our perseverance, and we stuck with it, and we said this is one of the most important things that is happening in America. You know that there are many non-Arab people, they are reading the website. We know people are doing it because we get comments from senators and professors, and they say, oh, I like what you said, or I think you should have said it in a different way, or you said it wrong. So it goes to thousands of professors and thousands of non-Arab people, and this is the joy we get by doing it.
Actually, we get over 1.2 million page views to the arabamerica.com website. And you know, several 100,000 people a month, you know, come through our platform. And our e-news has over 100,000 email subscribers, and it doesn't just go to Arab Americans, but it goes to many non-Arab Americans as well. It goes to Congress. There are many Congress people that get it. It goes to the White House. It goes to many governors, State Department, Homeland Security, many agencies receive it and look at it every week.
Back to challenges. She wanted to know about
well, I was just going to say that, but we are getting to people.
I mean, you're reaching an audience, and the thing is, like, this community is, I think, like, there's the largest concentration of Arab Americans in Michigan, but there's Arab Americans all over the United States, and the population is growing, whether it's, you know, first generation, second generation, and there's more of an interest. And I think what you're doing is educating, and because of the fact that you went through, despite lack of funding, despite lack of support or anything else, you not only did the Arab America media, but you also did a television series called Arab American Stories. What was accomplished with the series, and, you know, are people able to view them today?
Yes.
And if so, how?
Yeah. That's about 10 years ago. And it was an idea that, you know, I was sitting with somebody from Channel 56, the public television station, and we were talking about different things. And I came up with this idea and pitched it to them. And you know, I said, you know, look, we're in Detroit, and this is the largest, as you said, the largest concentration of Arab Americans. And this is public TV in Detroit. You should be doing something about this community. You know, why don't we produce this series? So we came up with the Arab American Stories, and they said, well, go out and, you know, if you want to do this, go out and raise the money, you know. You know, I was very blessed to have members of the Syrian community. Really, there were members of the Syrian community that took leadership of this as far as fundraising. and went out and raised the money and raised enough money that we could produce it. And it became a national, not just in Detroit, but it became a national series. So we produced 13 shows, and each one has 3 vignettes about Arab identity, whether it's somebody in music, somebody that's an immigrant, it could be somebody that's an entrepreneur. It took like 39 different individuals, so 13 times 3, 39 people that were highlighted, and it was on disseminated on on the PBS network, not on PBS, but through their they have like a secondary network of about 100, I think over 100 stations around the country that picked it up. So which was great. Can you see it now? Yes, it's if you go to arabamerica.com and you search it, you'll see the videos there. And you can go to arabamericanstories.com. I believe there's still a portal, a website where you can go and see them. You're muted.
It's funny because when you just said that, I've seen that website. It's a very well known, yes. So here I am, I've come across that, and it's very beautifully done. And so this was all while you were in Michigan. Did you eventually moved to the Washington, D.C., and was that because you were the former national president of the Arab American Anti-Discrimination Committee in Washington, D.C.? Did you move to Washington because of that, or were you already there?
No,
Yeah.
We were here in Michigan. And then we were asked if we would, I was asked if I wanted to accept the presidency of the organization at that time in 2011. And so, Amal and I talked about it, and, we had been rooted when I say here in Michigan, for over 30 years, and so it was quite a move. But we decided, let's go. It was working on a national level with Arab Americans, and it was a very exciting time for us.
And during that time, what was the political environment like? And, how was it affecting Arab Americans?
It's interesting because, back then it was like 10 years after 9/11 when I became president of ADC. And you would think that it would have been a little bit better, right? Because there were so many initiatives at that time, and to reach out to the Arab American community. But I'm sorry to say that it wasn't that much better. And there was still a lot of racism. If hate crimes had gone up, I remember when I became president, there was a spike in hate crimes. The bullying was on a high, there were those types of issues as far as racism. And there was also like the MENA issue, Middle East, North Africa. When I was president, it was at the time when we were talking to the census, and we were trying to get the designation. Originally, they had tried to they wanted an Arab American category, but after much negotiation with the census, they decided to call it Middle East, North Africa, and include not just the Arab identities, but Turkey, Iranians, Israel was part of that as well, the MENA. And it was basically a done deal. I remember meeting with them and meeting with the other organizations that were involved. And Obama at that time was president. It was basically went on the docket. It was vetted, approved, and what happened is a new president came in, and basically got nixed. So we have to wait another 10 years. So it's unfortunate because that it's so important for us as a community to be counted, and it's not just important to be counted, but also the effects from being counted, the economic advantages, education, commerce for entrepreneurs, loans, money, and so forth. All of that because we're not counted. And nobody really has a count. It's basically just, if you look at the census might say there's like, I forget what the latest is, but like 200,000, they might say Arab Americans in Detroit. Anybody who lives in Detroit knows there are more than 200,000 Arab Americans in the Detroit metropolitan area. So there's an undercount. And so it's very sorely needed, but the problem is that the census is like every 10 years. So those are the types of issues that we dealt with. I don't know.
And there is one issue that Warren, you brought to life during your presidency, the issue of Alex Saudi, who was murdered in Los Angeles, and there was no closure because there was like neglect. The issue was neglected.
It's like an unsolved murder, and you know, he was tragically murdered. He was the first Arab American, and it's never happened before. And tragically, he was his office was blown up. It was an ADC office, and there's never the perpetrators have never been brought to justice. And it's just and now there's been a lot of media about it. Especially just recently, Senator Durbin asked the FBI to look into it again and to find closure for this event. There was a reward for many years. It's just, and it's a whole show in itself if you want to talk about it, but it's really unfortunate. And this man left 3 daughters and a widow, and it's never been solved. It's the first act, by the way, of terrorism in the United States, because the perpetrators, they're saying, were members of the JDL, of the Jewish Defense League at that time, which was a very potent organization back in the 80s.
Wow. Yeah, that's frustrating. There's a lot that goes on, and it must be very frustrating when you're working on things like this, and then they either don't get resolved. That's the thing, it seems like in both cases. But at the same time, you have done a lot of things that have evolved, a lot of wonderful things. Amal, in your case, you have 35 years of experience in bilingual education working in Detroit public schools. And by the way, a recent event that I went to, the Arab American Women's Business Council, if I'm saying it right, it's a long name. There was a lady that sat at our table that I think you taught when she was in school, and she was sharing how she felt about you, and that she felt that you stuck in her, you left a big influence in her life, because years later she understood that you were more than just a bilingual teacher, and that you were a mentor to her in so many ways. So and I even myself see that, like when we first met, and then over the years, and I see your position and we understand it better. Sometimes it takes us a while to understand what the people that we're working with are really trying to do, especially when they are very subtle and loving like yourself. You're not aggressive, and you kind of leave space for people to make their own decisions. So what advice would you give those working with bilingual children in general? And it's not just the Arab American community,
The most important thing is to know that the children they are working with, they are really lost, and they are is it time, Maureen?
No, I want you.
Oh, okay. All right. I thought I am very slow. Anyways, it's very important to show these children care and love and attention, and engage them in the classroom and engage them in school activities. I want to mention that before I forget, that one of the other student, I think you met one, and another student of mine that I was a teacher of and mentor, the Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib. She was she was my student, but I like other educators to pay attention to the parents, to connect with them, and to embrace them, and just feel with them, because their language is very limited, and still they are trying to find their way in the host country. So one thing I would recommend very strongly is to feel with them, and to show them attention and care, and be genuine about it. Sometimes take 1 minute to make a phone call to the parent, but that makes a big difference. And make effort to gather parents and talk to them. And educators also really should connect with the kids by doing activities like hands-on. It's hard. The kids, they don't understand. Still, they don't understand. So explain to them through doing activities in class, and have them help each other, like big sister, big brother, or mentoring each other, and just following up with them, and also be positive, be very positive and engaging. And this is what my advice to educators of bilingual education.
So normally our program runs for half an hour, but I do have a few more questions. So if you guys are available, is it okay if we continue? I think it's very difficult to keep it at half an hour with given all the things that you have done in the past and all the wisdom that you can offer. And, so I would like to go and ask you the next question, Amal, which is in DC, you've been a champ for women recognition, inspiration, and empowerment. And with the story that you told us of what you did in your younger years and how you fought for your own education and you were a leader for yourself. Can you tell us what challenges you encountered and what were your biggest accomplishments? So you did mention that in the beginning, and actually I didn't realize that it started at such a early age that you were had this much courage from the beginning. But I guess along your path and maybe as trying to help other women follow that path, what do you find has been challenging? Maybe another good question is, how do Arab American women, maybe either what holds them back or how do they sometimes even sabotage themselves? As we've all known, I mean, Arab or not, everybody has been there and done that before, but what is your observation culturally that we do that to ourselves sometimes?
I noticed that Arab American women, they are extremely busy building themselves in America. So time is so big challenge. They say, Amal, we have our children to take care of. We have our own jobs. We have to bring income to the household. We are taking care of our elderly parents. You know that our parents, culturally, we cannot put them in senior citizens home. We have to take care of them. So the challenge of time is the biggest challenge. And that was a challenge of mine because I wanted to do much more in Michigan. I did attend many events for women in Michigan and was inspiring many women. You can do it. You can, whether you are a Yemeni woman or Palestinian woman or Iraqi woman or no matter what is your background, Arab background. And this one challenge is the time of Arab American women. But the second challenge is some of them, they think they cannot do it. They don't know where they cannot do it. They say, oh, you speak better, or you have more time than us, or I don't think I understand it well enough. Or they say, we don't know where to go. So, that's why they are happy when I offer them organizations that they can plug into. And also another challenge, maybe because we are very busy, Arab American women, establishing our families and establishing ourselves in a new environment. So it was very hard to integrate with other women organizations. And that is very important to do. And when I came to Washington, D.C., I said, that's it. I retired from Detroit Public Schools and teaching in college in Michigan. So I am going to pay more attention to the issue of women. I started the Women Initiative for ADC, women from all over the United States and also from DC itself and its surrounding. We gathered, we ran events for ADC. I think it was the biggest and strongest component of ADC, it was women. And the women became very strong and they said, why we want to start even to become stronger and more independent from any other organization. We can run our own organization. So we got together and we started an organization called NAWA, N-A, AWA, National Arab American Women Association, and this is also مبادرة بالعربي. It's an initiative that I helped with tremendously and brought them the name also. And as a woman working with Warren hand in hand with Arab America Media and Arab America Foundation, we do Zoom meetings. We had a Zoom where we highlighted the Arab American women in broadcasting, and they spoke about their experiences. And we did another event almost every March. We do an event through Arab America Foundation for women, and we got together now women from DMV, which is DC, Maryland, and Virginia, and we decided in March the 7th, we are going to participate in the Women's March along with other women organizations. Go ahead.
I think that's the beautiful part. I think that when you start seeing, you know, people, women that inspire you, that have been there before you, and that they, you know, when you've done something before and you see somebody else and you can open a door for them in a very, very simple way. And you kind of did that too, Amal, which recently you invited a group of people that had been to the Empowerment Women that were at the Empowerment Summit to the Arab American Business Council event that they had, which I honestly wouldn't have gone if I wasn't invited that way. And I thought you guys were going to be there. So I was like, oh, great, I get to see them in person. And when I got there, you know, they're like, no, they just were, you know, they were just generous enough to offer it.
Organized it.
Yeah. And yeah, that was a very nice gift. And the meaning of it, because the energy there was wonderful. And so because of this, I ended up reaching out to the president and others of that organization. And then I have to share with you, Jumana Judah.
Yes.
We've been messaging each other. And yesterday, you know, I've been meeting and I'm like, you know, how can we collaborate? I love the energy of the women that were there. I see they're all not only just empowering themselves, but are really willing to reach out and help other women. And so I said to her, you know, so we were messaging each other, and there's one thing that she said that I love. She said, I feel like the Arab American women are like a hidden treasure, you know, and that, you know, we're trying to bring them forth. And I said, yes, and together we really can do a lot of wonderful things. So I appreciate all your efforts, including, like I said, something aside from all the bigger things, but that kind of invitation, because what you are doing, you're introducing us to something that I wasn't even aware that it is around, because we tend to be overwhelmed. I am one of the people that taking care of the kids and work and my mom and etc. and having extended family that you have to, you know, deal with. But it's good when you see others, how they've done it, and then you're like, oh, okay, well, you know what, that's okay. Let's find a way to work around that. So I really appreciate all of you guys' efforts.
And I want to remind you that
Yeah.
we don't let, every organization should not let any event pass without a session about women. And as you noticed at our summit, we did one panel, and you were a guest speaker.
Yes.
there, and all the women were heads of the organizations. So I just want to invite our listeners to this important aspect of running events. We have to get the women in the limelight.
Yes, I love the diversity that you bring into the event. That's why I had so much fun with it, because I'm watching different things and learning, and you know, it's exciting. It's not just a matter of, you're not just including them for the sake of but it's really more flavorsome, and you learn so much, and it's very exciting, and everybody feels they're connecting to people that you might, you know, like for me, something as small as at the women's event, I'd never had Yemeni tea and coffee. And I was so impressed by that. And I thought, you guys, you know, I've been here for you know, so many years, and I'm not aware. And that motivates me. Like, I'm like, you know, I'm going to take my family so we can enjoy and get a taste of that. But it's these little things that sometimes get overlooked, but they're very, very important. And through all your work, what has it's come to now that now you are part of the co-founders of the Arab American Foundation. What is the mission and what activities has it been involved to date?
Well, first I want to say that I'm also empowered by an Arab woman. And I think there's also another element of Arab women and how they contribute to their spouses and to their success in many ways. Because as you know, many Arab Americans are entrepreneurs and so forth, but the woman is like the base, and they sacrifice. And there's something about an Arab woman. I've been married to one for quite a few years, and they sympathize with you. They want to see you move forward. They want to see success and so forth. And there's some great stories there. I think that in itself is a panel in the future of how Arab American women empower men. But getting back to the foundation, the Arab American Foundation basically has three objectives: to promote, to educate, and to connect. To promote the Arab identity, the Arab heritage, to educate, and we talked about that a little bit as far as providing an alternative narrative, through the media that we have, the platforms, and through the initiatives that we do. And then lastly, to connect, to bring our community together, no matter where they're from, in a non-sectarian way, which is very similar to what we did with the summit. And some of the initiatives that we do to promote, educate, and connect include National Arab American Heritage Month, which is coming up in April. And we started to bring that together. Nobody invented Arab American Heritage Month. There have been many initiatives over the years, for the last 30 years, to promote Arab American heritage in school systems, school districts. And some states did it in April, some did it in November, some did a week, some did a day. We decided in 2017, and with Amal having an education background and knowing how important it was, there really was no National Arab American Heritage Month. Similar to Latino Heritage Month or Black History Month. So we decided, could we get all the states on one platform or together? So we started with like maybe 3 states in 2017. Last year we had 37 governors from across the country that proclaimed National Arab American Heritage Month. President Biden,
even
President Biden said some good things about it, sent us a letter, said great things about the contributions of Arab Americans in this country. Even the State Department made a statement about it. So last year was kind of like all of our work over the last 3-4 years kind of took a new level. And this year we're even going to do bigger things. We want this to be even a permanent holiday. And so already 2 states have made it permanent, the state of Illinois and the state of Oregon, if you can believe it. The state of Oregon, which doesn't have a large Arab American community, but there were some activists there that took it to the local legislature and to the governor, and they got it approved. So we're working on it in Michigan now, in Virginia, in New York. There are many states around the country where we want to get this as a not just a proclamation every year. We want it to be an actual bill, an act, where that state will celebrate it every year.
Another initiative we started, because this is Arab Heritage Month in April, Arab American Heritage Month in April, but I want to mention that we started also programs for rising leaders. We want to empower young people. So we have a contest, 20 outstanding Arab Americans under 20, 30 outstanding Arab Americans under 30, and 40 outstanding Arab Americans under 40. And we do them throughout the year. In fact, on Wednesday, we are announcing 20 under 20 contest, and we recognize them in writing, and we recognize them also personally on stage during our summit. And this leads us to another major event, and that is the summit. We had a very successful one in Michigan, and in the fall we are going to do it. Many states are bidding for it, and this is when we bring in person, many Arab Americans together. So we do have many Zoom meetings, and we bring special guests. One example is we had a panel for ambassadors that served in the Arab world, and they just really gave us their experiences. It was wonderful to see what they learned when they were in the Arab world. One other thing, Warren, the last thing we do measure is that we have teams. Like you are a member of Team Michigan. We have Team DC, Team Virginia, Team Hawaii even. We have about 26 teams around the country, and we want to build them bigger and more of them. But this is teams that the team is composed of individuals that are eager to help us achieve our mission.
The most important thing is that what we do is we bring everybody together under one common denominator. So no matter where we come from ethnically, religiously, or politically, there's one common denominator that unites us all, and that's the heritage, our culture, and because we're united by the Arabic languages, by music,
food,
by literature,
Food,
cuisine,
yeah.
and that's a beautiful thing. And if we can come together, and we are seeing results, with this initiative, we can become stronger as a community.
So, one last question. So where do you see your work in 5 to 10 years from now? And what message, advice would you give the Arab Americans? I guess it's two questions in one. What advice would you give Arab Americans trying to promote an accurate image of the Arab American community?
Yeah, I think in 5, 10 years, we like to see stronger teams around the country, more Arab Americans involved, and more Arab Americans giving. Giving is so important because nothing is sustained. Let's not kid each other. If we want to be sustained, we have to have Arab Americans giving in time and giving in donations, in gifting. And we also want to be in many states, in all states. And also, Warren, we were talking about where in 5, 10 years, where like this sustainability is very important.
Sustainability is very important. I mean, as she said, we need to build more on
social
our
media.
development. I'm talking about, another thing that we need to do too is coalition building.
Yes.
And, like last year, it was really interesting. We just started last year where we got a proclamation during National Arab American Heritage Month from the National Education Association. And we got one from the LULAC, which is the Latino American, their national organization that represents Latino Americans in the country. And we want to do more of that. We want to build more coalitions because it's important. As important as it is to build internally in our community, it's also important to build externally. That's great that we can come together, but we also need to build coalitions.
So partnerships. We need, so in 5, 10 years, we like non-Arab Americans to be singing whatever we said. We want non-Arab Americans to say it, and also in 5, 10 years we want it taking over by young people. This is the key. This is our generation, and that's why we have rising leaders. But we want to strengthen this component of our program. And there is a second question to...
Yeah, the message. What message would you give people, I guess the young people even that are trying to do something like that? What message would you give to them that they can succeed on this path?
Yeah, do promoting of Arab heritage all the time. Like when I bump to neighbors, I talk about our heritage. I invite them for cookies and tea and baklava. And do it in the workplace. Talk about it. Be ambassador. Be a good person. And they say
proactive. Be proactive. Many times we don't toot our horn. We kind of like keep it within ourselves, and it's important to say things and to talk and tell people, and that we have great things. We have.
That's interesting, Warren, that you're saying that, because you're family has been here longer. And I have noticed that the longer somebody's been here, the ones that are born here do have a different attitude about that. It's something that I think, you know, in the Middle East, we're more reserved when it comes to this area, but it's so important. And I always have a lot of people, very loving, very successful people that want to hear our stories. And they say, you have to, you know, they're always telling us to voice ourselves more, to tell our stories. And there seems to be a tug when it comes to that, because we want to, but it's sometimes culturally, we're not used to that as much as other communities have become accustomed to it doing.
Yeah, and another suggestion to everyone to promote our heritage is making presentations, even if you go to a school, to a classroom, and especially during Arab American Heritage Month, we have a beautiful PowerPoint presentation. If you want to take it and show it, or if you want somebody to show it, we'll find someone. So you can do it in schools. You can ask a police department if they can gather and you make the presentation to them. You can go to libraries. Let them, they are eager to have exhibits. Give them ideas or lend them some artifacts or books that they can display. And we have a list of many activities that Arab Americans can do easily without any expense.
Okay, so everybody, you hear that? There's no excuse. You go and you contact Warren and Amal David, and they will give you a list that will keep you going for at least 10 to 20 years. So there's no time, because, you know, when you're working, you're not analyzing and you don't have time to stop yourself. It's kind of, it makes life, it's more work, but it makes it easier because you're not overthinking it. You're not over analyzing it. So really connecting with you guys in any level, even by just getting the newsletter, which is, it is, what I like about it, it's honest and it's positive, but it's truthful too. It's not like you cover various things. And so, and it's a healthy read. I find it a healthy read that's not geared in only just one direction. That's the beautiful part about it.
You, Rianne, for contributing. You have articles there. Go to the blog, everyone.
Yes, I have articles there, and I really enjoyed, until, like you said, because I was taking care of my mother and my kids were a lot younger and stuff, and it just, my mom like lived with me for 5 years and I was taking care of her, and it just did get overwhelming. But I really enjoyed the process because the team that I work with, getting on our monthly calls, or sometimes they were done more and stuff, it kept me going and it kept that mindset. So it's very helpful to connect to people in the community and to share our work. And when you have skills and talents in a certain area, you're right, you know, we have to give, whether through time or donations or however, and it makes a difference, it builds up. So thank you guys so much for joining me today. This was a lovely morning conversation. Everybody, this will be recorded so you can see it if you haven't, if you missed anything. Thank you guys again, and I look forward to seeing more and more success stories coming from you. Okay.
Thank you so much. And if anybody wants to connect with us, info@arabamerica.com. Info@arabamerica.com. Thank
Great.
you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much.
Wonderful weekend, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.